First of all, warm greetings from Croatia, and of course, greetings on behalf of CEV. We in CEV have, since the beginning of this crisis, following and having our eyes and our minds open to what's going on in the volunteer sector and how the civil society organizations are responding to what is happening, and also how can we respond in the recovery process. So I hope this webinar will bring you some new insights in this direction. And let me at the beginning first thank to our speakers today. So thank you, Mickey, Mary, Gertrude, Mauro, George, and Joanna for your valuable insights on what is going on your local level in your countries. And I hope these experiences you can all take and of course adapt and incorporate in what we are doing locally in our communities. We have been, of course, and we will continue to share volunteer stories across Europe and how volunteers have given a great contribution to relieving some of the damages that this crisis has caused. But I would also like to use this opportunity to emphasize the role of the civil society, because the civil society was very active since the pandemic struck Europe. And organizations who at the same time have organized volunteers have been at the forefront in supporting their communities, have attended to the needs of vulnerable groups, provided support to healthcare institutions, protected EU citizens' rights during the lockdown. And they are still continuing to do so. They are very persistent. And I think their role is really valuable, and we need to preserve that space. Just recently, General Secretary of the United Nations has given a speech in which I found very valuable things, among which he was trying to expose some of the misconceptions that we had before this crisis. And one of the fictions that we had is that unpaid care work is not work. We see now that's not true. It is a valuable contribution. It is a solidarity act, and it is as valuable as any work around us is. And he also called for a new deal, for a more fair, more just world around us. And I think in this new deal, civil society organizations, civil society in general, and volunteers will play a very important role. So with these words, I wish you a good webinar, and I hope to see you soon again, of course, in one of our live conferences. I also would like to thank Europe for Citizen Program for co-financing this event and our work. And with these words, let me just say thank you once again, and I wish you a great work.
Ladies and gentlemen, volunteers, I would like to welcome you here. I am very welcome that I can do this webinar with you this day. Thank you also to the Center of European Volunteering for giving us the possibility of doing this webinar. First of all, I would like to ask ourselves a few questions. The first one would be, the virus has enabled constant adaptations by associations, and therefore we have conceived adaptations in general in a short time period. Now the question is, with a long-lasting virus threat, how will associations be capable to create long-lasting adaptations and thereby create a new long-term dynamism? That is the first question. The second one would be, how to keep alive the huge momentum of solidarity of the first months. How can we go from spontaneous solidarity to long-lasting solidarity in this platform? What resources track way? And I would like to say that I feel that there is a contrast between the slowing down now of spontaneous volunteering and a growing social need. How can we respond to this apparent contradictory movement? My name is Michel Lefranc. I am from France Bénévolat in France, and I am in charge of international relations and a member of our Center for European Volunteering. I would like to now come to our first slide on mobilization of solidarities and flexibility of associations. The existence of the virus has brought in many ways a shift of focus for associations from their usual commitment to an urgency commitment and new priorities. And the success of lies often in the speed given to the adaptation. I would like to give you some examples. Associations had or still have their usual opening hours. And now some of them, and a growing number of them, aware of the very difficult situation, have created phone calls and emails 24 hours a day, which is a great change. That means also that teams had to reorganize themselves for more meetings, and the application like Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever have intensified their working sessions, and this has naturally helped us a lot. Many associations also have offered special training courses to get accustomed to digital tools. What can be also added is that the lockdown has brought and is still bringing associations together when before they had very few links with one another. That is, that the digital tool has enabled an intensification of links between activities and also between people. This means that there is a contrast between associations which had to close, and there are many of them, you see it on the screen, and those which adapted fast and their activity. Another example, therefore, is that those associations which adapted themselves had to reorganize their communication team, and they have created also clouds to allow all volunteers to find immediately all the documents needed to help. One other thing which I would like to say in that respect is a new dynamism between associations and local authorities and also the state. In fact, it is unprecedented what has been happening between associations and municipalities to recruit new volunteers, to respond to immediate needs, or to help people in distress, or to help with the creation of masks and also plastic protections. creation also a bit everywhere of what is called in France communities of actions between associations, local authorities, and also firms, bringing together people with expertise on special solidarity projects. Another aspect is the cooperation with the state. The state of France has created a platform which is called a platform of civic reserve, of civic solidarity, where over 350,000 people have declared themselves volunteers for missions, and more than 150,000 missions have been given to them. What I would like to insist on quickly is the fact that the emerging problem now and for the future will be the major difficulty of finding finances, because the usual contributors may have great difficulty themselves in financing. And so the subsidizing of association will be one of the aspects we will have to take into account in the future, and perhaps find new ways of finding contributions. Slide 5, the adaptation of volunteering. That oblige us to develop new forms of solidarity. What emerges, at least in France, is the solidarity becoming more acute, more evident, obvious, between local authorities and associations. We had a tendency to see how we were working separately, and now, because of the crisis, we are working more and more hand in hand, which is naturally something important. The other aspects we see is that if you want to go on with volunteering, you have to have a genuine and strong will to pursue your task. You have to be really motivated so that you can go on. Slide 6. This is what we have been doing also in this period of crisis, is also maintaining the aspect of democracy. We have shown that everybody can have a chance to express himself and to do what he wants or she wants. Slide 7. It is extraordinary what the crisis has brought in terms of creativity and at what speed. It is amazing what we have already obtained within 2 or 3 months as a change, which was not at all expected. So what would be interesting, it would be to collect throughout Europe and beyond Europe all these innovations, to have perhaps a platform, or to have a place where we will be able, through CEVs, through other structures, to see and to be inspired by other innovations we will see. So there is a need to write down a kind of perpetual list of innovations. Slide 8. Many, that is an illustration of what is important here as accelerator of recruitment. This is what we are going to see. Many of the different generations have discovered or rediscovered the usefulness and benefits of volunteering. The association are there to maintain and also to deepen this dynamic, so it doesn't get lost. This is the meaning also of this slide. Slide 9. Slide 9 is, please, slide 9. Next slide. Thank you. Slide 9 is an illustration of the fact that associations must listen carefully to one's own motivation and see how they can open themselves to a greater volunteering offer. So what was the case until now is that you would go to an association and say, I would like to do this. Yes, we know such an organization who could help you. But we are discovering that people are coming with new ideas of doing something for volunteering. And so we as associations have to be much more open-minded so as to accept these new recommendations or desires coming from the public. Slide 10. So the word intermediation is a key word, I would say, for now and for the future. That is the need to bring the demand and the offer much closer to one another. That's a kind of illustration of what I just said. Slide 11. The crisis has offered a great opportunity to better approach the question of intergeneration. For a long time, in France at least, a great majority of people were over 60 who were volunteering. And now, thanks to the crisis, we have a more spread generational aspect of volunteering, which is also very important. So on one hand, we have the volunteer seniors coming out slowly of confinement, and I hope they will not have to go back. And on the other side, this coming out of the confinement can be done also with the other generations who have shown already during these 2 or 3 months what can be the openings which were possible. So this, I would say, will lead to the deepening of our already existing two-way training. The seniors will offer their rich experience in volunteering, and the youth and middle-aged people will show them the new path in approaching volunteering.
Mickey,
yes?
Interrupting you again, sorry, we're already quite over time. Can you wrap up in a minute or so?
Yeah, I can do it very quickly.
Okay,
but you will have the time to read the whole thing. So to wrap up very quickly, I will just say that we stand today, because of the crisis, between a wintry perception of volunteering, where many activities seem to have come to a standstill, and we are also having a spring perception of volunteering with a rejuvenation of activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mickey. And I think we just missed a couple of slides about, of course, the engagement of young people, which is really important. We're going to open now for questions and discussions for, I hope, 5 or 6 minutes. So if anybody wants to put a question in the chat, or if anybody wants to intervene speaking, please, you can open your microphone and say something. Leila, you want to say something? No? She was applauding. Anyone else want to make a question, a comment?
But please, what I can do is write what I just said to CEV, and that could be added to the PowerPoint.
Yes, we can do that. We can do that, Mickey. So how are you feeling in France Benevola then about the future? You're feeling hopeful, you're feeling positive, you're feeling anxious. What's the general feeling now about the next months ahead, certainly before we get a vaccine?
Yes, we are, as you know, an umbrella organization. That means we are working with 6,000 other associations, and the feeling is the feeling of something positive. That is, we have created altogether, I would say, in the whole of the world, a kind of revolution, of change, a very positive change for volunteering, and therefore we are full of hope.
That sounds good. Anybody else from the participants want to add something in that vein? How are you feeling in your countries? You are feeling that there are some positive situations to come from this, or you're feeling that volunteering and the impact volunteering can make is going to be extremely restricted?
If I may?
Yes, Mary?
Yes, I think that there will be some positive changes, definitely, post-COVID. I believe we have learned a lot from the situation, and especially women. Women have had to adapt perhaps the most because of homeschooling and so on, as I shall speak about in my presentation now.
Thank you, Mary. And you just want to say briefly where, well, you will speak anyway, but from the National Women's Council of Malta, yes?
Yes, that's right. National Council of Women.
National Council of Women, okay. Anyone else want to mention something about that, about the general feeling in your countries, in your organizations?
Perhaps later.
Perhaps later. Perhaps
Warming
it's a bit
up.
early in the morning still.
We're warming up.
Okay, well, thank you, Mickey. And everybody already received your presentation, but the full presentation will be sent to everybody again afterwards. And then we can also take some other questions or comments and add to the wealth of information that we're gathering about the reactions and responses of volunteers, volunteer organizations, and volunteer infrastructure organizations as well across Europe. Then if there's no other questions or comments on the situation in France, we will move to the experience in Malta. And from Malta, we have a trio of presenters. They are going to make a huge effort to present everything that they have been doing and plan to do in Malta in a very short space of time, 7-8 minutes, so that we will have time for some questions and discussion afterwards. So do please, as they're speaking, think of what your comments or questions would be. And equally, if something occurs to you that you want to refer also to what Mickey was saying, we can also add that into the mix, no problem at all. So Mary, anyway, I think is ready to start. And we will try with this trio of presenters trying to give the big panorama and idea of what has been happening in Malta. So Mary, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, and good morning to everyone. Good morning, Gabriella, and good morning, Leila, and to all the participants here. Yes, can we move on to the other slide, please? First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Mary Gertie, President of the National Council of Women. So what has the National Council of Women been doing during this time? First of all, the National Council of Women was founded in 1964. We are a platform organization as well, and we have 35 affiliated organizations with us. So we gather quite a bit of experience from even other associates who are affiliates, who are members, and from members as well. The National Council of Women has, as always, embarked on an educational program to help men and women upskill, reskill, and women especially to be able to enter the labor market, because sometimes they have great difficulty if they have never worked and want to enter the labor market, or they have been out of work, raising a family and want to return back. Next slide, please. We do this through the lifelong learning courses. And obviously we had to close down because of COVID. And we found ourselves having to rethink how we are going to present these courses. So we immediately went online. And teachers who did not have the necessary software and laptops were handed over laptops from our center, because one of the courses that we do hold at the center is IT courses. And so obviously we lend them these laptops so they can go online and give the lessons as usual. Next slide, please. One of the courses that we had just started was the digital entrepreneurship course. So we said, what's more appropriate than to continue with this course? This followed the entrepreneurship course that we had started and finished earlier on last year. And this was a continuation of the course whereby they are able then to learn how to sell online, how to produce the marketing, websites, and so on, to go on to startups and develop their own line of business. And so we went, we did this immediately together with the tutor, who was incredible in helping everyone, even those who had not done it before, to assist them to be able to follow online course. Next slide, please. One of the things that we felt was that many women found themselves alone at home with their families. Many had to work from home. Others had to work from home and look after the family or elderly parents or disabled children. So that put them in a place of loneliness, and many feared also mental health problems. And in fact, even many companies raised the issue about possible mental health, especially to mothers, due to the fact that they were extremely stressed in trying to cope with their work as well as with the family. And homeschooling, never having been done before, was not an easy job, and having to cope, especially when you don't have enough laptops at home or enough computers at home, and you have 2 or 3 children plus your own work to do. And this resulted in many women having to struggle and at the same time having to work after hours and long hours because of coping with the family as well as with their work. Some of them were not able also to work or to have enough knowledge about going online. But we tried to give as much as possible information so that even they could follow and move on with their work and family. Next slide, please. We also organized a number of webinars. They were informative webinars on how to cope at home, the well-being, nutrition, because we know that everybody was on lockdown during that period, and healthy eating, nutrition. We had one on recycling because, as we know, if you are more at home, you produce more waste and so on. We had a new law just come out also, the cohabitation law, and we had a lawyer. We had 2, in fact, because even on the nutrition, it was a very popular webinar, and there was a request to have another one of it. The cohabitation law, we did 2 sessions as well, which was very interesting and well attended. And also there was another problem during the pandemic, whereby mothers, during delivery time, the fathers or partners, the fathers of the child or anybody else who wanted to accompany the mother during the delivery was not allowed in because of COVID. So there was a great concern by the mothers, and together with our Midwives Association, who are also affiliated members of NCW, we try to see how we can cope with this, because mothers were becoming very stressed because of this. Next slide, please. However, throughout all this, we continued, although we were not in the office, we continued to move along, and we issued press releases about the situation, about what should be done, and encouraging everyone to continue moving forward. Apart from this, the NCW quarterly newsletter, Ilmara, was sent to, still was sent to all the affiliated members, the diplomatic corps ministers, and the other people and the government as well, in order to see to have information about what we are doing. We have also participated in various other online webinars, even for ourselves to learn and to see what is happening and to give our input. In fact, we were invited to several other webinars ourselves as officers to be able to give our feeling about what women and families are going through at that moment in time. Next slide, please. So beyond COVID and at the moment as well, we are members of the International Council of Women. We have just had a meeting, online meeting as well. The European Center of the International Council of Women, the other independent forum of the Commonwealth organizations, and you can see all the list there. The MCESD, which is a very important platform also, where NCW is represented there as well as part of the MCSD civil society. This platform will allow us to put forward ideas concerning the civil society. We are also members of the voluntary sector and also of Empower. Empower is a platform for all the women organizations in Malta, whereby we also see what it has to be done. And even during this COVID period, we had our AGM online as well. Another important council we form part on is the consultative meeting, which is under the one of the ministers. And in that platform as well, we share the experiences, and we have done also what happened during COVID and then moving forward as well. And also we represented at the UN Women and Women for IT. I think this is my next slide, the last slide. If I'm not
no, that's it. Yes, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Just as a conclusion, we would like to continue post-COVID with more webinars because many have found them interesting, and online discussions on various topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have the speakers from SOS Malta or from the Malta Health Network. I don't know if we have Gertrude, are you there?
Yes, I'm online and I won't waste a lot of time. SOS Malta was crucial to the setting up of the Malta Health Network in 2007. And we are an umbrella organization bringing together 40 health-related organizations. The pandemic gave us an opportunity to work again closely with SOS Malta, which initially was behind the setting up of the Malta Health Network. We can go to the next two slides. Next one. So the pandemic, we thought that it was the biggest opportunity to contribute to health in Malta, with most of our members being logged in because they fell within the vulnerable group. We looked at the other sector of population who could help. So we launched a call for volunteers in March. Within 2 weeks, we had over 500 people who registered. I must say that this was in joint collaboration with SOS Malta. They helped with the dissemination and the call for volunteering. By the end of May, we had given over 10,000 hours of volunteering. And for the months of May and in March and April, we gave 10,000 hours. For the months of May and June, because the pandemic slowed down a bit in Malta, we gave 2,000 hours of volunteering in each month. And for us, this was incredible. Next slide. Being in the forefront, it was incredible to see the enthusiasm of people. We were entrusted with the coordination of the volunteers who were following from the helpline, but not only. We worked closely with public health, with SOS Malta, with our members as well, the Malta Medical Association, with the Gozo NGOs Association, because we had volunteers from the sister island of Gozo, and so they need to be managed on the island. We helped with the food aid program. We had people from all walks of life who contributed to our volunteering. We had professionals, we had lawyers, we had teachers, we had nurses, we had students, we had housewives, we had people from the gaming industry, we had people who lost their jobs in the tourism industry, we had many third country nationals who were living in Malta, and it was so nice seeing their messages. I want to help Malta because Malta has given me a life, and these messages will remain imprinted in my mind. People wanted to help fight this invisible enemy. And for us, it was an incredible learning curve because this was our first experience of dealing so closely with volunteers. My last slide. Next one. Yes. As I mentioned, the generosity was incredible. The enthusiasm. The staff really gave me a very positive feedback. The professionals, the doctors who were working with these volunteers, and they said the volunteers fueled our energy. And it was great to see people working so closely together. There was no distinction of roles and jobs. People were willing to do anything, data input, doing phone calls, taking phone calls, helping people with the distribution of food and medicine to the vulnerable and the quarantined people. We had many people who helped with the translations of material. Malta is multinational, and we translated information into over 20 languages. I'll just close here and saying that this was my first experience of managing so many volunteers, and I really hope that in the future we'll have more opportunities to keep serving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gertrude. And again, after the third and final speaker from Malta, we will have some also short discussion and reflection on what you shared with us. So thank you. Then if Mauro is there from the Malta Council for the Voluntary Sector.
Hi, Gabriella. Hi.
Hello.
Hi to all. First of all, thanks for this opportunity. As the Malta Council, basically we represent the spread of 1,800 volunteer organizations registered in Malta. So immediately, and we go to the first slide, when the situation was triggered, immediately in March, we went into lockdown in Malta on the 13th, 14th of March, and we had to actually address the situation and reality of the various volunteer organizations, some of which, like Gertrude mentioned, had their operation increased, some of which had simply to close down, depending on the area, on the sector of operation. So with immediate effect, we issued a lot of material information being passed on to us, to the sector, so that we see what's happening and inform the sector what the next step is. So those that needed to close, we were giving direction on how to do that, and seeing on the other side those volunteer organizations who needed to actually increase their operation in support, being social, health, disability, animal welfare, which were actually had increased operation. We needed to see the reality. Next slide, please. So with immediate effect, we issued a survey to understand the reality of our organizations. We had a feedback of more than 15% of the VOs from the various sectors to understand issues like operation, cash revenue, cash flow, the issue of those volunteer organizations who actually employ people. So what was the reality? As a result of that, and in complement, we issued with immediate effect a system of helpline and hotline, so that we were supporting the volunteer organizations 24/7 to see what were their difficulties, their realities, so that we could pass immediately for the second phase, which I go into the next slide, please. In fact, as a result of the information that we were receiving, we realized that one of the issues that was a reality is that issue of funds, especially those organizations who needed to keep operating. So be it special equipment, sanitizing equipment, even other costs which needed to be supported with immediate effect. Because apart from dealing, as itself states, with an emergency situation, so we needed to see that cash flow keeps going out. We needed to see that those giving us, especially as essential services, were in a position to keep doing so. Okay, in fact, in complement even with our contact, on the 20th May, we initiated a series of webinars with all the various sectors. Basically, we had 2-3 webinars with each sector, up almost 20 webinars in 2-3 weeks, right? To understand, to listen to the sector and understand the reality, the problems, what was the situation. Next slide. In fact, one of the issues that we were facing, we had some of the major organizations which actually engage as well people because of their operation, especially working in the areas of social care, disability, and they manage homes even for drug abuse. So whatever the issues are, they have a number of employees obviously engaged on their payroll. On the other side, because of the reality, no fundraising was being done, no revenue from corporate sponsors had slowed down. So on that side, we actually requested government as part of our continuous discussions during this period, and we were allocated the sum of 3 million euros, which right now we are actually supporting volunteer organizations with a sum dedicated to each employee they actually have on their payroll, so that we support part of their salaries as well as utility bills and other related running costs which they had to extra incur during this phase, so that we see that the operation keeps going and obviously the clients get the service that is needed. Next slide, please. So in June, we actually were also in continuous discussion with the public health authorities, and we issued, because we were aware that the volunteer organization needed then to actually start reopening up, depending on the situation locally. So we had actually issued guidelines, detailed guidelines on how the organizations case by case need to open up, activities, fundraising, safety equipment, safe distancing, and all the details. So having done that as well, we complemented with the first meetings, even though respecting social distancing, meeting with the sector to actually inform and hear on the operational assistance scheme and the emergency scheme, so that they actually are encouraged and assisted to actually apply for funding, which funding is eligible for this period of 6 months. As well, to complement what we are doing and even to promote the sector itself and its operation. As our French colleague mentioned, it is a good time to actually promote the reality of volunteers and their participation. So we actually engaged ourselves for the first time as well. We have a TV program, it's aired twice a week, promotes various important aspects of the sector, but giving the persons out there who are viewing this program skills which they need in everyday life. So we are combining both. A program that will last up till September, and this is aired on national TV. Basically, the way forward, we have to actually, and we've learned more through the reality we've passed, that we actually have a better communication with the sector. We'll keep that going, and actually we've learned how to use better Zoom and other issues apart from social media. The surveys will be done again, so we have a regular 3-monthly update of what's happening with the sector. We will be having in September more than one, at least 2 stakeholder meetings with the authorities and government to see, even resulting from the collaboration which actually took place in the past months, to see how the better to go forward and what to improve if and when something similar happens. We obviously, as we are doing today, we intend to actually participate more actively and in EU fora, but obviously the last thing, be prepared for whatever, but mostly from our side, be prepared to support our organizations in their operation. Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive and complete overview of all the different aspects of things that were taking place in Malta. We've pretty much taken up all the time for the time slot for Malta, but anybody can give me a sign if they want to say something. But I know for sure that we have a representative, I think, from Red Cross in Malta who wanted to add something. Philip, are you there?
From Red Cross.
Although I tried to bring it out in Malta in 1986, but I have seen that the Red Cross in Malta have done a lot of work also in Malta. Touring Club Malta, through its affiliation with the FIA, we have brought masks and given these masks to Transport Malta so that they give them to the employees, etc. That's what we have done. We have a problem about high affiliation fees overseas, and that's our biggest problem, how to face the fee to be paid. Thanks you a lot for all this conference today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your input, Philip. Any other points or questions about the Malta experience, or we move on to George from Scotland? No? Okay, hopefully we still have some more time for reflection in the end, in any case. But then I would ask George, are you there?
Yes. Can
Hello.
you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriella, and thank you, Leah. Yes, I'm George Thompson from Volunteer Scotland, and thanks very much for this opportunity to speak to you this morning. So COVID-19, I'm sure, has changed so many things, not just for us, but for you as well. And some very big changes have affected us. The one I'd like to just point out, the main one, is that we have 35,000 new volunteers that have signed up with us. And one of the things that we did to communicate with them and engage them was we set up what we called Radio V, Good Morning Volunteers. And in 12 episodes, we had about 50 different volunteer voices each week. And that really had a big impact on me as I listened to these voices. So my focus is for you this morning is to take 3 of those voices and to put ourselves in the shoes of the volunteers, to look at what can we learn, what can we listen to, and what difference does it make to us in our own context, in our own leadership, about applying those lessons and the themes that come through. So that's what I aim to do. So the 3 volunteers I've selected, and it's quite a difficult thing. One is a young woman, only 18, Rosie, from one of the poorest places in Scotland, in Glasgow, Drumchapel. She's a young sports coach. The second person is Peter, and he's very different. He's a very rich entrepreneur, a businessman who has invested in what's called the Scottish Tech Army. And the third is a man called Ian, who moved, I think retired, he moved to one of the remote parts of Scotland, beautiful part of Scotland, Gairloch, north of Inverness. And I want to just tell a little bit about their stories. Now, at the end of my short presentation, I've got just 3 minutes, a minute each of them, and we're going to listen to their own voices just as I finish. I wanted just to draw to your attention first what I've heard. So in Rosie's case, she started as a football player in women's football. I'm sure in your own countries, the magnificent growth of the sport has been something wonderful to watch. And that's happened in Scotland as well. So she was a player at 15. But she then tells the story, now that she's 18, about what difference it made to her as an individual, as a football coach. Her personal growth and development is really very clear. Her confidence in dealing with adults, with parents, with the players, and with other communities comes shining through. And she talks about the togetherness, the coming together of the team, the community itself, and other communities and how they engage elsewhere, and pride in the achievements and the success that the club has had. So I think she's our first witness, if you like. The second, Peter. Now, as I said, he's an entrepreneur, a rich person who, as a business person, understood a very big need in Scotland. It's come out from the earlier speakers about the digital exclusion, about the need during this lockdown to provide equipment for people connecting, the Zooms and everything else, but also to have the learning in how to use it. So he, with some others, leaders, they pulled together nearly 1,000 technical professionals into what they call the Scottish Tech Army. And those individuals then dispersed and provided, via the Scottish Government funding, thousands and thousands of computers and laptops and what you call it, the tablets and such, and also the training to enable people to be connected. And his story is really, really quite strong about two things. One, the impact of the service that they do, but really quite moving in some senses, the uncertainty and insecurity upon the technical workforce. The 850 volunteers who were unsure about what's going to happen to them in their careers because of the recession and such, and about how they bring them together into a community of professionals to provide this service. And there's a real openness and imagination about how they will continue into the future. The third person is Ian, and he is simply a volunteer driver in what's called the Gairloch car scheme. Now, you will not hear this part. I would say if you get a chance to listen to Radio V, it's on our website, Volunteer Scotland's website, you'll hear the full story. And it's a woman, Peggy, a frail older person who's had a bad fall. The ambulance take her to hospital, but they are unable to take her the 75 miles back to her home. And that's where the car scheme came in. And Ian is the driver who picks her up, and there's a lovely story about their relationship and what he does. Now, what's particularly important, though, in his story, he was a newcomer to the Gairloch. So he's come from, it sounds like Glasgow, to go to this remote community. And he speaks about how he and his wife were asked, which is a lovely thing, first of all, they were asked to join the scheme and be a member of the community. And in so doing, they got to know people and they became part of that community and they feel good about it. He also says a really important theme for us is that he was thinking ahead to the future, to a time when he might need a support like that himself, a kind of pay it forward kind of way of thinking. And it was lovely to hear that from him. So these are the three stories that you're going to hear shortly from them, from their own mouths rather than from me. But what am I taking from this in terms of the question that you've put? So kind of what now? And what do we learn from this about how we in our own leadership move forward? Well, I really do strongly feel that the simplicity, the humanity and the directness of our volunteers and their voices and how they explain things is so different to so many of the professionals and the interested, vested interests around volunteering. And I think we've all got something in humility to take from listening very clearly and carefully to what those volunteers are saying and what it means for us. The next thing is that there's three key things that we kind of pretty much well know, that it's friendly, social capital, good relationships that engender volunteering action in coming together to do things of real value. So what you've heard in the three stories is communities of place, communities of interest, sometimes a mix of both, where it's community building that is absolutely the driver behind it. Now that community building cannot happen without infrastructure, structures, without resources, without investment. And these are the things that we're trying to grapple with in all the complexity of it, because there's not one solution for these three different settings. But boy, is there a requirement for us to say, look at the value of this, wonderful value. What kind of investment do we need to make to ensure that community building can thrive and survive? So those are my thoughts about the three, and I wonder if, Gabriella, you can simply show that. I should just say, and before you listen, I apologise that two of the three have very strong Scottish accents, and it may be that you find it very difficult to pick up what they say. And don't blame yourself for that. It's not your fault. But at the same time, I felt, look, listen to the voices. Whether you actually pick up the words, you will hear the voice. And I think that's what's important to me in this contribution this morning. So over to you, Gabriella.
Thank you, George. So let's try with the magic of technology. I'm going to play the recording from my computer, but we're also going to share a link in the chat of the recording. So I think you all have your microphones off, so it shouldn't be a problem. So if you can't for any reason hear what I'm playing on the Zoom, you can also play the link on your own computer. You can also copy paste that link now and listen to it later, but we will also share it anyway in the report. So here is the recording.
I was 15 in 2017 and I joined the under 15 squad. Played for them for about a year. It was just a way to get out of the house and like clear your mind and stuff. I turned 16, so I was too old. I started coaching for the under 15s to start off with. I do miss playing, but I prefer being on the other side, helping the kids and stuff. Before I joined, I was quite shy. I still am a bit shy, but now I'm used to talking to parents, giving them how their kid was during the training session and just getting to know everyone, really. It's quite special because I could be not even in drum chapel and then I'll still recognise someone, and it's quite good to realise that it's bringing people together. If they've got something going on at home, they can all come to you as well, and they don't need to worry about it going anywhere else because you just see each other there. It creates all these brilliant relationships. We went on to win the double, the league and the League Cup, so that's pretty amazing, and ever since I've just been trying to get more community work done for Drumtrap United.
We put the call out for volunteers when we launched the Army on 28th of April. As of this morning, we have over 850 people who volunteered. It's been quite humbling actually. With COVID-19, the urgency to get disconnected people onto the internet was very important. access government services, health benefits, but of course, be able to connect to friends and family via Zoom calls or other video calls. It's a very emotional experience. We've got several people who are just about to graduate from university, had a job offer in hand, and all of that has been rescinded due to the pandemic. So these are people that were just starting their careers right now, have no idea when they'll be getting back to the workforce. Ultimately, we want all of our volunteers to get back into the workforce as soon as possible. These mentoring programs we have internally and some of the other development work we're doing will help keep people's skills fresh, help them develop new ones, and of course help them build a network of like-minded technologists across Scotland, which hopefully will help get them back into the workforce. We're still working out where the future lies for the Scottish Czech Army. The one thing, unfortunately, that we do know is that we collectively are heading into the biggest recession of our lifetimes. It's going to have a big impact on technology jobs. We'd like to think we can help people fresh and build a career going into the future.
I was here about 3 months and a neighbour asked me about the interest agent taking part in the car scheme. And I said, I relate, I said, a few things to do in the house, etc. So after about a year, started doing the car scheme. Just thought it'd be a sort of helpful thing to do. But it was a real benefit to myself, my wife. It helped me get to know people that normally I would not have met. Aging community, so there's a lot of older people who if it wasn't for the car scheme in the hospital scheme, you wouldn't be able to get to where they want to be. You put yourself in that position that you will be in one day and think, what would I do? What would my wife do if I wasn't here?
Right. Thank you, Gabriella. That was a little bit of an experiment. I'm not sure if it worked out too well because it did seem to break up quite a bit, but hopefully you've got a flavour of what I'd been saying about these witnesses beforehand, and also you will have an opportunity to listen again, hopefully clearly, after this. If any of you are interested, we're going to put together like half-hour e-learning sessions based on 8 different voices and looking at what have we learned from those volunteers from a journalist point of view, from a Scottish Government point of view, from a volunteer management perspective, as well as a citizen one. So if anybody's interested in maybe helping us to assess that material, that's something I'd be only too happy to connect with any of you about. So it's kind of, I think it's now whether or not there's any questions or observations or challenges maybe for what I've already shared with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, George. Any comments from anybody? Questions? Something resonates with your own experiences with volunteers where you live, with the volunteers that you are engaging with? We've stunned everyone into silence.
Perfect.
Mickey,
Yes,
you want to say something? Go ahead.
Like to hear from the different participants how the volunteering is rewarded, because this is a question which is quite important for us. That is, people work as volunteers, but we also see that people who are rewarded for volunteering are very grateful, and that rewards can be important for their future. Therefore, I see, for instance, in France, when we spoke about the National Employment Office, of the idea that volunteering should be considered as something to be taken into account for a future job, the Employment Office said no. That is none of our business, and we are not going to treat volunteer work as something which we can take into account. But now it is completely the reverse in France. The National Employment Office pushes people to do volunteer work, and also to acknowledge this volunteer work as something which can help, which can contribute to obtaining a diploma. And so ministries are working in the same direction, especially the Ministry of Education, which covers 80% of diplomas in France. And this idea, I think, for the future is also very important, that we should consider that volunteering is not just a period where you are doing something but considered by others to be inactive because you are not in employment, but something which participates to the whole employment movement of our society.
Could I respond to that,
Go ahead,
Gabriella?
George.
See, I think, Mickey, whilst I don't disagree with what you're saying at one level, what I think that misses is what your own presentation and what we've been saying just now about this moment. And this moment is not where we were 6 months ago. This moment in Scotland is about recognising that formal volunteering has declined. We have the statistics to show that there's been a significant decline in the formal volunteering and the formal recognition. Alongside that, there's been a massive increase in volunteering through connectedness, association, through neighbourliness, through kindness and through self-organising. That's where the growth is. So my challenge back to you would be, what's the best way of recognising the kindness between people when they come together to do things from a good heart? And it's a very different to volunteer management recognition and the kinds of things that we've tended to do there, albeit they're helpful and useful. We have to reinvent how to continue to build this community associational, community building life, in my opinion.
Thank you, George. I think now, anyway, it's time to move to the next presentation, where we are going to hear from a specific example from Portugal of where young people are volunteering. So maybe Joanna in her presentation can also revisit this aspect of reward and recognition, and if that's been an important part of the mobilization of young volunteers in Portugal that Joanna will speak about. But before we pass to Joanna, were there any other further comments on that last exchange, or any other points raised about what George and the volunteers that George shared with us? Mary?
All I wanted to say, yes, that even here in Malta, the universities offer credits for those who want to volunteer. Many a time they see it just as obtaining another credit, but many a time then they continue in volunteering. So it's like a stepping stone into volunteering, like an introduction to volunteering. And yes, it is included in their CVs now, yes.
I would like to say just a little thing concerning Malta. In my lifetime, I have been working with Malta in several domains, and each time I have discovered that this small country of Malta has always great ideas and great people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So from one small and great country to another one, Portugal. And now we're going to hear from Joanna, who is a youth projects coordinator for one of the Portuguese Scout associations, but she will explain that and about what they have been doing to mobilize particularly youth volunteers during this COVID-19 pandemic, and what are the plans and expectations for the future. Joanna, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much. Hi.
Over to you. Let me know when I should move the slides.
All right. Thank you very much, Gabriella. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my presentation will be about scouting, the adaptation of scouting. And as you can conceive the scouting movement, you always think about nature, but during these periods, it was not so easy to go to nature. And so we move forward to our homes and our community and we did a great job, I suppose. And yes, if you can change the slide. So just for you to understand our association, we are a Portuguese Catholic Association. As Gabriele was saying, we have 2 Scout associations in Portugal. The other one accepts all religions, let's say. We are the biggest Portuguese youth association with 72,000 members. We are a country about 10 million people, so it's big, let's say it's big. And we are divided in 1,000 local groups through the whole country in 20 different regions. And we have about 14,000 adult volunteers who, let's say, take care of the young people and the child within the association. So our mission, the mission of Scouting, is to contribute to the education of young people through a value system based on the Scout Promise and Law, and to help to build a better world where people are self-built as individuals and play a constructive role in the society. So what we do is that we give the young people the tools they need to have, and so they themselves, they can build a better world with the help of the adult volunteers. Yes, next slide, please. So I will divide this presentation in 2. How did our adult volunteers helped during these COVID times? So one part was from nature to home, and the other was to the community. So let's see, what did we do in our homes? Because our Scout activities were cancelled or postponed, let's say, we had to find different activities for them to do inside their homes because they couldn't go to nature and we couldn't be together. So local groups, the 1,000 I told you about, they created their own Scout activities and launched different projects from home. And CNE, the association at national level, has launched also national initiatives. And we call this project Scouting at Home. And it included like a set of online challenges, and in order to encourage and provide all members of our association with various tools to scout at home. Of course, it's a bit weird to think scouting at home and not in the nature, but anyway, we thought that we have around 60,000 young people willing and eager to go to nature and to scout, and we decided no, we'll have them having activities anyway, even though they cannot go to nature. And so we launched various initiatives, such as these ones that I will talk about. So the first one was the 17 days, 17 SDGs. We created a program around the Sustainable Development Goals. So during 17 days, we launched different initiatives so that they could do some actions to actually, sort of going through all the SDGs and doing something to achieve these SDGs in particular. So at one point they were learning about the SDGs, and the second they were actually acting. And this was very, very good, let's say, and many other countries actually followed this initiative. Then we had this national camp indoors. So for you to have an idea, a big national camp for us would be 20,000 people camping at the same time. We did this indoors, everyone in their computers, and we launched different things like like doing workshops for them to understand how to be sustainable at home, how to build their own camps, and it was really, really well seen. Many participants showed up and created this national camp indoors. Also scout concerts. It was massive. Let's say it was massive. Then of course we had different challenges such as playing, painting cartoons, doing crosswords. We also had weekly talks that was more for adult volunteers to sort of understanding how this was implementing, and being weekly and being like national wide, this was very important. So they could understand exactly, and they could, you know, show the good opportunities they had for their scouts. And it was this this nice how to say, talks with more volunteers around the country. So this was actually very good, and I think we are even doing this because it was so good. Then the Scout Talents was another initiative where scouts could show their talents, like these TV programs. We did this with the kids. The Boys and Girls of Meth King, another, this is very scouting scoutish thing. Leave Your Faith. We didn't want scouts to you know, because they couldn't attend mass, we didn't want them to stop leaving their faith. So there was this online mass every week for all scouts, in a scout way, let's say, and different kits like survival and combat and get ready. And this was very, very useful, especially now that we are coming back to our activities. They could actually understand how would be the best way to come back and to live scouting again, but of course always with the measures that we need to take. Gabrielle, I'm not sure if you can open the link just for you to have an idea of our website.
I don't think so, no, but also we are very short of time now, Joanna.
No worries.
Yeah, because you also have the other thing about what the young people were doing. So we will provide the link in the report.
Yeah, thank you. And then from nature to community, this was another part of what the volunteers have been doing. So scouts between 18 and 59 years old have volunteering at individual level when asked by the local authorities, such as the civil protection or relief organizations, the municipality. And this was very important to understand the different needs of the community. We were able to do things with the organizations that already did something, like the municipality, for example, and the local authorities. They knew exactly the needs of the community, so we could help and in a way that we are doing the difference. So a huge number of scouts mobilized and helped their communities during this time, and depending always on the local needs. So few things that the volunteers did was something like make masks and visors and distribute them, help on resources and volunteers management, lend scouts headquarters to the ones in need, cook and distribute food to the ones in need. This was big, this was massive actually. Give free lessons on sign language. Many young people loved this idea and they participated a lot. But also buying groceries and medicine for the most vulnerable. This was actually more to elderly people, and of course helping in nursing homes, dispose household waste, walk pets, delivery draws from the kids. The kids would draw themselves and give it to elderly and health professionals. And we also had this program of adopting a grandfather, grandmother, and writing to them, so becoming a pen pal with them, and also creating a platform where scouts can volunteer at individual level with a local institution, always depending on the needs of the local community. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna, for that fast overview of the huge efforts that you've made in scouting in Portugal and similar organizations all over Europe to adapt how the volunteers make their efforts, and also when the young people couldn't take part in the normal program, that they themselves became volunteers. And hopefully that's something maybe that the scouting movement will see the added value, and maybe that's also a positive change that we can see, that this terrible pandemic provided an opportunity for those young people to also become volunteers themselves. We have just 9 minutes left of this webinar, and we will still have some wrapping up words and a short evaluation on Mentimeter, so you can get ready for that as well. Are there any questions or comments about what Joanna shared there from anyone?
May I ask something to Joanna?
I cannot see who is speaking, but yes, go ahead.
Gertrude, sorry, Gertrude.
Hi, no, okay, go ahead.
Have they started meeting again, or are still the activities virtual?
Yeah, so thank you very much. Most of the regions are indeed meeting again. So for example, my region, Lisbon, is not meeting yet because it's not safe yet, but most of them, yes, they are. And they have all measures. It's the same for everyone in the country. And we did a lot of different documents, so we could all be in the same boat and doing activities safely. Also for the parents, letting them go to the activities. This was very important to set up a good scheme and a good strategy to have activities again. So yes, most of them are indeed doing activities again.
I would have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
In France, we have been having meetings with scouts, and they are quite, as you may know. One question which was drawn to them was, what do scouts do or would be doing or could be doing for refugees? Could there be a link between scouts and refugees of the same age? Knowing that scouts are Catholic, as you just mentioned, as far as your scouts are concerned, but as you know, refugees are not only Catholics, and they may be from many other religions.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So we actually had a group of venture scouts. They're about 14 to 17 years old, and they actually raised a lot of money. They went to Greece, to the camps, and they were helping for a summer the refugees there. We don't have so many, let's say, refugees here, though we have some, and there are a lot of scouts here helping the refugees, especially with language course. And because we are Catholic, that's why we want to help everyone, and that's what the church tells us to do, no matter what religion. If they are willing to be scouts, as I say, there's another Scouts Association, and there are Muslim scouts, there are you know, all sorts of Hindu scouts, there are all sorts of religions. In ours, we are Catholic, but that's the reason also why we want to help other people, no matter what the religion is. So
yeah,
yes,
thanks for that, Joanna. We are rapidly running to the end of this webinar. Before I would ask Leila, I think she's still here, to perhaps say some closing words, or if there's any final comment from anyone else. I just put in the chat the address for menti.com. Well, I just wrote menti.com. If you can open your browsers and go to that website, Christian will also write in the chat the code. And there we just have a couple of questions on Mentimeter, which hopefully many of you are familiar with. I would also ask you just after that, as we are closing, if you would like to be in the group picture, if you could open your cameras, we can take a nice shot of everybody on the group picture. Is Christian there? Can you write the code in the chat? There it is. Okay, so you can go to your browser and put menti.com and put in that number.
Thank you all for your participation, your contributions. It was really valuable for me to confirm again the power of personal testimonies. They are the most powerful tool in advocating for volunteering and showing people what it means, what it really means, in translating it into the benefits for the whole society. I believe we're going to take some valuable inputs with us and of course incorporate them in our everyday work. Probably about the issue on how volunteering has changed during this pandemic. We will probably talk about that for a long time now and analyze it and discover it. I'm sure about one thing though, that what it needs to change is the environment toward volunteering. We need to support it more. That's something that is so obvious for me. So good luck everyone. Enjoy some summertime and holidays if you have. And hopefully see you in autumn in person. If not in person, I'm sure CEV will continue to organize this type of events and many more innovative things. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you, Leila. I don't know if my team has taken the group picture, but anybody who wants to be on it now should open their videos. Thank you, everyone. This will be the last of the webinars in this Volunteering in Solidarity COVID-19 series before the summer. The after summer will come around very, very quickly, but we will see you all again then with news also about our Autumn Volunteering Congress and all the events that we have planned for the autumn. Thank you to all of you. Thank you again to the Europe for Citizens program for continuing to support all our work in the Center for European Volunteering efforts. And this is, as I mentioned again, our first meeting under the new name and with the new logo. So it's a very important moment also in that sense. It was really great to have you here from all corners of Europe. Thank you again to the speakers. And I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day, weekend, and a lovely summer for those of you that will have holidays, and a great working and productive summer for those of you that will not. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.